Okay, good morning, boys and girls. Afternoon. Welcome to PE Slick Podcast. It's your host, Ranger Matt. Joining me this week is a throwback. It was a TV show back in the 90s called Quigley's Village. And I'm here with the main star from the show, who was Quigley himself, Mr. and Pastor Rick Carlson. Let me bring him on board here. Okay. Hey, Rick.
I'm Matt. How are you?
I'm real good. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, I remember the show real well quickly. My mother just informed me again last night that it was my grandmother who introduced me to the show. And I'm just, I was thrilled about it. And the main thing I loved about the show at the very end was God loves you and we love you too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Where are you from, Rick?
Sorry. I grew up in Seattle area, but have lived. My wife and I have lived all over the U.S. North, south, east, and west, and now we're in the Midwest in South Dakota. Yeah.
Okay. What kind of hobbies did you have growing up?
Hobbies. Music has always been a huge part of my life. Piano lessons and trombone. I wanted to be Bill Pierce. That's a name you probably wouldn't know, but he was a Christian trombone player way back when, and it was fantastic. So all the band stuff, sports, did basketball, football, track. I was a pole vaulter, believe it or not. Not a very good one, but so I love to do all that kind of stuff. Always have been writing stories and plays and music and whatever ever since very early. So yeah.
When exactly in your life did you get into the ministries?
Well, as far as I've always been in ministry in some form or another. Pastoral ministry was not something that I was looking for. In fact, I really didn't want to because my dad was a pastor, and I knew what it was like. I being raised in a pastor's home, you get a pretty clear sense as to what the ups and downs are, and he was a wonderful pastor. And loved his people dearly. But just, I didn't think that's what I wanted to do. I knew that God wanted me to be doing ministry. And I thought that ministry for me then meant doing music and other kinds of productions. And that's what I essentially did the first part of my career, which is when we did Quigley. I was still in my video and music production career. And then in late, I guess I would say late 80s, I sensed that God was calling me to something. Late 90s, excuse me. That God was calling me something different that would entail a big change, and so we had finished production on Quigley at that point. I was still traveling around the country doing appearances and concerts and things like that as Mr. Quigley. But we had a young family. My wife and I just said, this is time for a change, and I was sensing a call into pastoral ministry at that point. And so to do that, I literally had to sell all of my music and production equipment and everything else because I wouldn't have gone full into pastoral ministry had I been trying to hang on to my former life in music production. So I had a nice little recording studio in our basement. We actually built a house around the design for the recording studio, and sold all the equipment, everything, keyboards, every wire that I had, I got rid of it, gave through whatever I needed to do. And then we sold the house because that meant, kind of going back to things too. So, and then went to seminary, Bethel Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota, and was called to a church that was just a 3 wood away from the school there. So I could actually do both. I was doing pastoral ministry in the church as well as going through seminary at the same time. It took me a while to get through, but I finally did it, got the MDiv and all, and I've been pastoring ever since. So that's kind of the long story. So
you've had a journey.
yeah, but that's good. It's okay to make changes. I mean, if you're going to follow God's call, you got to be obedient. So I was trying to be obedient.
Absolutely. So, when you got into doing Quigley's Village, I mean, how did that come about for you?
You want the long story or the short story?
Sure. Give me the long story. Sure.
I was asked by the church to help my denomination to help plant churches in Houston, Texas, which I'd never been there before, but so we moved down to Houston. My role was to work with music and youth and things like that with the new church plants that were being started. And I brought down a group of people, talented group of people with me to help, because as we were to plant churches, we were going to plant them with a music person and a youth person already involved. So I had a staff of 5 people, and we were working hard, but funding that many people without any kind of funding sources is kind of tough. So we put our heads together and we said, you know what? I found a little cable station, and I went to them and I said, hey, if I produce a kids TV show for you, will you put it on the air so that we can advertise and maybe get some revenue, as well as advertising these little churches that we are planting in Houston? The guy said, yeah, if you can produce it, I'll air it. And so I went to the church denomination. I said, I need some money, not a lot of money, but I need some money to be able to produce a pilot series for this cable station. And they came up with the money. They had a project that they thought, this fits really well as far as the kind of outreach we want to do. And so my friends and I, we built a show, created a show from scratch that we were thinking, okay, let's do kind of a Saturday Night Live for kids Christian. How's that sound? And so we created a show called Looking Up. And we couldn't go to a real studio to shoot it because it would just be too expensive. We built out our offices to have a little studio in it and create, had a few lights and had hired a director to help us. And we shot the show. We did 3 pilots of it, 3 shows for the pilot. And we're putting it all together and doing the mixing and the editing and all that stuff. As we were finishing the final edit of the final episode, I got word that the cable station went under. It went out of business completely. I was devastated. So, we finished the edit, and I started shopping the edit, looking up around to other stations and publishers and things like that, and nobody wanted it. And I have to admit, it wasn't that good because we had cut so many financial corners. It would have worked fine for that little cable station, but not fine for CBN or anybody else. And it was just kind of one of those Oh, if I only had known, if I only had done something like this before, and it just wasn't going to be. About 6 months later, I got a call from the guy who was the director of that TV show that we did,
Right.
of Looking Up. And he said, "You know what? I'm here at the Christian Broadcast convention, and I'm talking to an old friend, and he has a studio out in California, and he wants to put together a show um, based on teaching values to kids. And he can't find people to write and the talent to do it that are willing to partner with him. And I thought of you guys. Go lo and behold, and longer story shorter, I went to California in a matter of 3 days. We had a handshake and an agreement, and within 3 months, we were shooting our first 3 episodes of Quigley, and that means scripts, music, sets, all the design of a show, which normally normal people would say, okay, in 2 years we'll put this together. No,
Right.
we had to do it right away, of course. So so we got Quigley going in 3 months. That means, the building of puppets, the building of sets, and all of that stuff. It was crazy nuts, but oh man, what a fun time.
Yeah, it seems like it was. I mean, it's interesting how, like, normally for the show, it takes like maybe a year or so, like you were saying, to put together, and y'all was able to do that right away. And I mean, were you kind of nervous in terms of where the show could go, trying to reach the generation?
Well, you have to remember that this is back in 1987
Mm.
when so 33 years ago or whatever it was. Um, Back then, um, uh, there was a few things on broadcast TV that were Christian, um, you know, and none of them were very good either. I mean, they just were kind of low budget in every way, production as well as probably even talent. I don't know. Nice people, but nobody was really killing it as far as um, Christian broadcasting for kids. And the other part of it is, how do you monetize? How do you make any kind of funds in order to continue to produce? And so the executive producer, he's a great salesman, and he decided to start going to various book publishers and try and get it into Christian bookstores. Um, but none of the Christian bookstores knew how to sell video. They sold video like they would sell books, and the numbers just don't work very well. Well, over the course of years, we worked with a number of different publishers and finally landed on Zondervan, who did a really good job of promoting and creating a kind of a movement for us. And before long, we found ourselves, selling literally millions of copies of Quigley and translated into 5 different languages. So it's all over the world then. And so it started to get some momentum that was good. So we then came back the next year and produced another, I think, probably 10 or 11 episodes to fill out a full schedule of 13 for broadcast, and finished that part of the series. Came back the next year and did another, I think, 15 or so episodes. It was nuts. So it just kind of built from there.
Yeah. So when y'all was putting it together, and I know you did this with a few of them, did you have a favorite character that you enjoyed on the show, or you loved all of them?
Oh, I loved them all. I loved them all. Quigley was a wonderful character to play. I had never acted for video before, so it was really kind of funny because all of us that were acting and stuff, we had only done live theater or live things on a stage, and so we came into the studio and it was like we were yelling. Everything was projected and way bigger than it should have been, and so the director had great patience and helped us to to learn how to work within the confines of doing video shooting. I loved working with the puppets. Working with puppets and people is a challenge. So what Jim Henson did with the Muppets is genius. Let me just tell you, it's genius. The puppeteers, are, can't see me very well, but they're underneath their puppet, and we didn't realize that in the first time that we shot puppets, and so the poor puppeteers, they were literally laying flat on the floor, holding their puppet up in the air, trying to act, and they couldn't move, and they couldn't, So the next time we shot, we actually put the whole set up on 4-foot stilts, and so I was always walking way up in the air, trying to figure out how to not kill myself.
Wow. Did you so when you was doing the show, your family, friends, what was the reaction toward that? So I know it was a kids show. What did your family and friends think of it?
Well, it was really a hoot. I kind of got everybody involved, everybody that I knew. We needed volunteers to do everything from food to babysitting to travel, just taking care of stuff. So all of our parents were involved, and all of our friends that didn't have anything going we would our shoots would last about a month. So it was a huge labor intensive thing. So people were coming and going all the time, trying to figure out how to just keep some life going. Because we had young kids at that point, and it was a challenge, to say the least.
Yeah, and I guess also too. You guys did that at a time before today's time, where the technology is CGI and all that. Y'all was doing that in an era where it was handheld puppets, and I guess nowadays if somebody were to attempt to show like everything be CGI, it's really rare. But yeah, I love how y'all was able to put that show together from that time.
This is pre. Everything was edited linear. In other words, when you edited, you started at the beginning and would pull everything together. And if it needed to be a 27-minute show, you had to be counting your seconds along the way. And so, it was all edited on literally videotape and not digitally at all. So it would have been a huge savings and a whole lot cooler if we had been able to do it digitally, but that was the technology at the time.
So when y'all filmed the show, I wanted to re-ask this: when you filmed the show and when it was released, did it air on television or went straight to video?
Well, we did kind of both. We knew that we needed to get the videotape sales thing going, and so there was concerted effort to get the show in the Christian bookstores, and we were exploring, getting into Walmart kind of places as well. But we also made connection with CBN, Christian Broadcast Network, who were very happy to partner with us. The partnership is kind of weird. They didn't pay anything for the show, and they literally broadcast those first 13 episodes of Quigley for close, I think, about 20 years. Just ad nauseum every single Saturday morning for 20 years. And so people would keep coming back to me, "Hey, I saw you on TV yesterday." Oh,
no. Well, you guys did leave some kind of an impact, for people to come up and be like, "Hey, I saw you on TV." It's really rare to see a kids show and have it have like a church theme to it, like you guys did. Because there are kids shows out there, but it's rare to have that. And then to me, I think it did justice. Like I said, as a kid, I liked the show, and I got the theme of it, and Do you,
That's awesome.
you think the show could work today if they ever wanted to reboot it?
Well, it would be nice. I was heartbroken when we had to say, you know what, we just can't afford to keep going anymore, and it was tough. But it, we did the shooting over the course of about 5 years, something like that, and we learned so much. It was just an amazing blessing for all of our families, and we knew that people like you, Matt, who we would maybe never ever see, but would have a chance to spend some time with you in that way, is a kind of a cool thing when you think about it. And I it was a privilege, and I'm glad that I had that opportunity. Sad to see it go, but you know what? There are chapters in our life, and it's fun even now to reminisce and think about the times that we spent doing that. The people that we did the production with, the people who did the puppeteering and all, we remained good friends through these years, and are still all in contact with each other. So it's really neat.
I was going to ask you, one of the guys that was on the show with you, he played Dexter. His name was Robert Alger.
Yep.
Olger. What?
Bob Bogert,
What did he?
Auger,
Today?
Robert Auger. Bob is he is uh, um, a therapist, a psychologist, and so he's working with people. Lives in Chicago. The sad news is that just this last week he had a heart attack, which was very serious. And
I didn't know that.
yeah. So he's recovering, but there was a couple of days there where they didn't know if he was going to make it. But he and Deb, Bob made the puppet Spike work, as well as being Dexter, and Deb, she was Lemon, as well as doing Molly, the mail carrier. So they got married after the show produced, and have 4 kids, and have had a wonderful life, and living in Chicago. And then we just heard of Bob's heart attack this last week, so we've been praying for him to get better.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying I'm glad to hear about that, but I'm glad that you told me about that, because you guys ended back in the '90s, and a lot of people after shows end from that period, unless they have a website or social media, you don't really hear from them anymore. So
Right.
you wonder whatever happened with them. It's just like a TV actor or a singer when they're done, if they don't do anything else, you wonder what happened with them. So other than Quigley, it didn't show that he did anything else other than with acting. So I wonder whatever happened with him.
Yeah. Well, they're great people, and hope he recovers quickly and fully.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think your friends are doing today, Spike and the rest of the crew of 2020? I mean, I know the show's gone, but within their own world of Quigley's Village, what do you think they're doing today?
Well, you mean the characters?
Yeah.
I think they would still be teaching values. The people who played the characters, they're all doing some kind of Christian ministry. Pastors, administrators. Deb is the dean of women at a seminary. Every single one is doing something that has to do with ministry. So my guess is that the Quigley characters would have continued to learn and grow and get into crazy situations. I would have loved to have seen the show continue. We were working towards trying to do a broadcast version, meaning for a PBS kind of version. We started at the same time that Barney the Dinosaur started. They were in Dallas and we were in Houston, and so we kind of paralleled and saw what that production was doing, and the incredible success that they were having. And we felt like, you know what, we could produce something that would be as attractive to kids and have be able to say things that maybe Barney can't do that we could do very well.
Right.
But we couldn't make that leap. There was just a whole lot of blocks in the way, and so that's kind of where it had to land.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. 'Cause I know around the time y'all came on, Barney and Friends had started, and there was other shows that was similar to that were starting as well. I was going to
Yeah.
ask you that. Did you ever interact with anybody from any other show that doing kids shows at that time?
Well, I was. There were other Christian production things going on. Donut Man. I don't know if you remember Donut Man. Um, there was. I can't remember the name of the superhero, Bible Man or something like that. I met them um, at various conventions and music festivals. You know, they would have at a music festival. They would have a kids tent and then all the other great music on the sides. And so they would hire me to come in and spend an hour with 300 kids in a hot music tent. And so Donut Man and Bible Man and whoever else was there, we would just kind of rotate for 3-4 hours trying to keep these kids entertained. It was nuts. But anyway, they were doing stuff. And they struggled with the same realities of Christian TV that we were. There, you could not find a revenue stream, a way to financially make it happen unless somebody really underwrote it financially. It was just too expensive. So none of them really made the connection towards success that way. VeggieTales came about 5 years after the fact, and they did a great job of doing terrific productions and found other revenue streams in order to be able to sell lots of videos as well as get some broadcast time going. So
Yeah. So I just found I was looking it up for a second. The Quigley tape I had as a kid, it was called Spike and the Terrible Tripped Up Tap Dance. It was like a tap dancing show where all the characters had. That was the tape I had that my grandmother had at the time. And here's actually a clip I found for you. I was going to show you real quick with two of your friends here. This was something I had on the tape. Well, let me turn my phone around real quick. But how could we know that without practice we've got no place to go? We've got to do the best we can. Practice, let our practice getting better than it was before. It's getting better than it was before. That was the one I had on tape.
That's fun. Well, that's me doing the moose. That's Milty Moose. I'm the puppeteer for that. So you don't see Milty very often in the show. So that was one of the rare songs that he did. And then Bubba, the gorilla, that's Paul Lassard, and he also played a human character on the show, Doc. And he showed up occasionally in the early shows. Wonderful talent and just a great guy. And he's an executive now in the denomination and is doing great work. So yeah, that's very fun. I'm glad that you showed me that.
Yeah, I mean, memory of mine. I mean, for some reason, watching that as a kid, I just got hooked into it, and I found myself singing along with the show offhand. And yeah, it was a part of my childhood back then. I was born in '91, so my grandmother bought me that tape around that time when it came.
So you are the generation that would have had the grown up with it. So that's terrific.
Was it also fun too? I mean, I've seen some episodes where y'all had you did like a sing along one, and there were children who came up talking with you. Was that fun too?
Yeah, we every part of it, from pre-production of the writing of the scripts and the writing of the music and recording the music, as well as then actually videotaping the show. It was it was a lot of work, let me tell you. I mean, there is it just crazy amount of work and long hours and long days, but just a blast. And we found ourselves collaborating, on almost everything that we did, music and scripts and everything, just to get it done. Nobody could do it all themselves. So it was definitely a collaborative effort in every way. After we finished, when we were trying to make the transition to broadcast, we decided to kind of morph the show into something that would include children. And so we created a new show with the same characters that we had, and called it Simply Grand Quigley Band. And with that, brought in live children to do sing-alongs and various kinds of things with us, which complicated the show even more. It's like hiring a bunch of animals to help you. But these kids were great. I mean, they were wonderful and very talented and all. But it's hard helping kids to know kind of what to do and where to go and all. So, but Simply Grand, we produced I think 10 of those shows, but that was the point where we were kind of running out of steam with publishers, and we weren't getting any traction with broadcast. And so Quigley Band never really made it to the store shelves, and has never found a home, so to speak. So it breaks my heart, because they were terrific. I mean, absolutely terrific. But that's the way it goes.
Well, it's never too late. Hopefully, well, a lot of episodes is on YouTube now, and hopefully that springs interest in the next generation.
That's right. That's right. For your kids, how about that?
That's right.
There you go.
I gotta ask though, is there any like behind the scenes bloopers or deleted scenes we may not know about from the show?
So many. I mean, I actually did create a reel at one point of just the bloopers and the things that happened that are inevitable when you're working in a close environment with a bunch of crazy people like that. And nothing catastrophic happened as far as falling off these elevated sets or anything like that. But some pretty funny things happened that just are inevitable. So yeah, there's lots that can happen. To produce one episode of Quigley, we found took about 3 days of shooting. So, which is a long time when your budget is so short, because it's not just the cameraman and 4 people on the set. It's a whole army of people that are doing food and blah blah blah. So my challenge was you don't shoot any of, like when we were doing 13 shows, you don't shoot any one show from beginning to end. You shoot all of the scenes that are on the front porch at the same time. So I'd spend 3 days or 4 days on the front porch doing opens and closes for the show, and had to remember all these lines. And I'd have to change shirts every time because I wore a different shirt every time. So to remember everything, we didn't use teleprompters, and I wish I had used a teleprompter. I just thought that I had a great memory. Well, not when you got that many episodes and that many storylines going. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, Rick, I have another clip to show you here. This is actually a clip or episode that somebody had posted. This is a clip of you actually singing right here. I'm gonna just turn my phone around again.
Together we'll get the job done. Ayo, 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 ayo. Together we'll get the job done. Ayo, 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 ayo. Together we'll get the job done. With our songs and hammers too. Together we'll get the job done. We'll finish what we have to do. Together we'll get the job done. Ayo, 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 ayo. Together we'll get the job done. Ayo, 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 ayo. Together we'll get the job done.
Yeah, that's fun. That was Bob Auger. That's the guy I was telling you about.
Right.
One musician. Yeah. That. What's crazy is that I was 33 years old back then, and in order to make me look more mature, they had to put gray in my hair. Now look at me. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. You still look young and you still look healthy. Like on the mouth.
Yeah, you could say that, Matt. I appreciate that, but I'm an old man now, and have good memories of being a young man because I've got it documented. So
yeah. Well, I didn't know you was 33 because you look like you're 22 or something when y'all filmed those scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. It was my decade of the 30s that Quigley all happened. So
yeah. So I have to ask, what kind of music do you like?
I love every kind of music, frankly. I spent a good part of my life writing and arranging. So I spent a couple of years in LA at a school that helped to teach writing for commercial music for film and TV and also part of the challenge was that we had to learn how to write country and classical and jazz and hip hop and you name it. We had to learn how to write it. You kind of mimic it is more than actually being real country or something like that. But you learn the sounds, you learn the instruments, you learn the techniques and also and I enjoy all of that. I probably listen if I were to say what do you listen to, I probably listen more toward the classical and jazz side just because I enjoy that. But I listen to pop and hymns and you name it. I'll try it and see where it goes.
And I should have asked you at the top of the show. I asked all my guests this. How are you and your family doing during this COVID?
Hey, thank you for asking. We're doing well. We're nobody has been infected, but we are all being careful. It's crazy. I'm pastor of a church, and it is no picnic pastoring a church in the middle of a pandemic. Let me tell you. I've got wonderful people, but they're kind of all over the map as far as what they're willing to participate in and what they can and can't do, and everything is different. So But our
Yeah,
family is doing good. So thank you for asking. That's very nice.
no problem. And I was going to ask you about your church, Perry Hills Coconut Church. Can you talk about how you became a part of, well, how that became your church?
Well, I grew up in the Covenant denomination, Evangelical Covenant Church, and my dad was a Covenant pastor, and so I've been working with the denomination on various things throughout, literally since I was in high school. But the church, Prairie Hills Covenant, it's uh, been around for a while. It's not a large church, but a church with all kinds of promise and potential. And they were looking for a pastor and got my name. And so we said, well, let's take another adventure into South Dakota. And Sioux Falls is a great place, a nice sized town with lots to do, except during a pandemic. There's nothing to do during a pandemic, and um, but it's a good place for me to serve right now, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Does anybody at the church or even today still remember you from the Quigley days?
Yeah, a number of them uh, uh, remember those days, which is kind of fun. Occasionally, um, out of the blue, somebody will say, "Aren't you Mr. Quigley?" And I'll say, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I didn't recognize your face, but I recognized your voice." Okay, so I'll take that as a compliment. Yeah, I know I've changed. My look has changed drastically since I was in my 30s, but that's to be expected when you grow up. But uh, and my voice has probably changed a little bit too. But
Oh,
it's I do get occasionally uh, a letter or a package from somebody your age who has kids now and say, I showed my kids Quigley from the tapes that I used when I was a kid. And so they drew you this picture or whatever. So that's really fun to be remembered that way and all. So
yeah.
that's
And
cool.
you always will. I mean, did you, from looking back at what you did on that show, did you know that show will leave quite an impact and like a legacy?
Not a chance of realizing uh, what an impact those stories, those characters, that time and place, in our history, that it would actually have an impact on anybody's life. I mean, because we were all young parents at that time, we were doing it for our own kids.
Yeah.
We were thinking, yeah, we'll work hard and we want our kids to learn values like um, uh, telling the truth and being kind and all of these wonderful values that we wanted our own kids to learn. And come to find that it was having some kind of an impact on even kids like Matt. So
Well, I gotta also give a shout to my grandmother as well. Because she, like I said, my mother told me this morning that she's the one who bought me the Quickly tape, but my mother would watch it with me. And unfortunately, my mother's mother, is in the stages of early Alzheimer's, unfortunately. But
oh, I'm so
but
sorry.
she has good days. She has some bad days, and we're working on trying to visit her now because she's in a part of the area where it was like considered a red zone to the COVID. But but she has her good and bad days. But we always stay close to church and God. She always took me to church and we would dance. And whenever I would watch quickly, and she would see me singing and all that, she knew that I was engaged into it and I was gonna have a good day. So yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
Well, you give her a hug for me if you can be in and give her a hug, but at least say hi and tell her God loves you and I do too. Okay.
I will. So I have to ask you though. I mean, with with everything going on in the world today, with the COVID and people struggling, and it's just so much happening today. I mean, what is your viewpoint of where the world's going to go for right now? I mean, from what you see happening in 2020.
Well, these are scary times. And people are afraid. They're, they're anxious and they're um, stressed out by not knowing what's going to happen in the future. The whole politics side of things, the racial tensions, the financial fears, and of course COVID. They're very real, and to deny that people are afraid is not helpful. But Matt, I've got hope for where this is going to go, and the hope is not that humans are going to figure it out, but my hope is that God is going to do a great thing through these tensions, through these stresses, through these fears, to reveal Himself and to help us to see who we are in relation to God, not just um, not just trying to tolerate each other. That's not a that's not living. I want us to find ways that we can support and cheer each other on and give each other a chance to be the better us. And and I believe that is absolutely possible. So we need to rather than digging in our heels and all, we need to do a better job of listening to each other and taking time to learn about what makes us afraid or makes us anxious or makes us angry. Um, and by spending more time having those kinds of dialogues, I think we're going to find better solutions than just digging in our heels and shouting at each other and blaming each other and calling each other names. That's not
Right.
going to be.
You're right. You know, and it's. I also think too, because I was baptized February of last year, and the one importantness that I tell people, especially a coworker of mine today, who I give encouragement to from time to time, that positivity is important and staying close with God is important as well, because He will guide us to where He wants us to be, and God will never forsake us. He will never leave us behind. So I do think it is important even today that people get closer with God and understand what His plans are.
Yeah,
And He loves us.
good for you, and that's a good message that for you and your audience to be reminded again and again. That's good for you.
Yeah. So Rick, I was going to ask you. So do you have any upcoming plans or anything going on going into 2021 or throughout the remainder of the year?
uh, to survive, that would be one good thing. Um, I, I, I told you I sold all of my music equipment and everything else back in the 90s when I went into the ministry. Well, I had a sense a couple of years ago that God was saying it's okay for you to continue writing music and to do that. And so I bought myself just a little keyboard, um, and I have a laptop computer with some wonderful programming on it, and I just started writing again. And so over the last few years, I've been writing and arranging and doing some things that have been really fun for me. It not I don't ever see myself trying to get Steven Spielberg to call me to do his next movie. Those dreams are gone. But I can write songs and hymns and arrangements, for things that feed my soul and hopefully makes them people happy along the way. Um, not trying to make any money off of it. I'm trying to just enjoy the gifts that God has given and use them as best I can. So in answer to your question, I'm going to just keep writing, keep creating, allowing those things that feed me to hopefully feed others as well.
Yeah. Well, when you release your first, well, your upcoming CD, your album, just give me a free copy.
I will. I will. Absolutely.
You should also, I hope too that you maybe one day write a book about your life and include Quigley in it as well.
Well, I can't imagine anybody wanting to read a book about my life, but if that happens, boy, Matt, you get the first copy.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's you've had an interesting life, and with your church and getting close with God and the children, and especially with Quigley. I mean, anybody be interested in knowing it and you giving them encouragement and advice. You know, it like I said earlier, I think Quigley is going to that legacy is something that's going to live on. And I mean, I know it's a shame I didn't do more seasons of it, but this it left an impact. I think
Well,
you'll keep going.
thank you for remembering me. That's amazing that you would even be able to track me down. So thanks, Matt. That's very
Hey,
generous.
hey, listen, on this podcast, like you've seen, you know, I've had a lot of people on here. Even my pastor been on here, his son, and people from TV shows, and you know, as a result of me watching a lot of movies growing up, I became a writer. I've done some short films, and
Good.
I'm working on a documentary movie now about a TV show I used to watch. It was a soap called The Guiding Light that was on
Oh,
CBS.
sure.
And on the book as well, it's called Motivation because I've been writing stories for many years, and people kept saying, "We're gonna do a book. We're gonna do a book."
Good for
So
you.
I have one book that I wrote a few years ago. I'm going to try to release, and then the one I'm working on now that's down here is called Motivation. It's to give people motivation in their everyday life. And one quote that I've used a lot that's in there is called "Positivity leads to possibilities."
Mm, that's good.
Yeah.
I can use that. I'll steal that. That's great.
Sure, sure. And I'm going to use your quote too from Quickly that God loves you and we do too. I'm going to use that in the book as
There you
well.
go. Go for it.
So before I let you go, I got one last clip of Quickly I'm going to show you that was a favorite of mine, which is the quote that we just used now and a song that was on there as well. I'm going to turn my phone around.
Sounds good.
Need stand or run tomorrow. Good night. Good night, Mr. Quigley. I'm sure glad you came and spent the day with us here. You're welcome at the village anytime. Remember, God loves you, and we do too. Good night. And thanks for Jesus Christ, your Son. Thank you for friends and family. Thank you for watching over me. I know I'm always in your care, and you are with me everywhere. And now it's time to go to sleep. I know my busy day is done. Thanks for the promises you keep, and thanks for Jesus Christ, your Son.
Good memories.
That was that song for some all the songs that y'all did I like, but for some reason, like I said in the email, the Good Night song that I just played you, that was something that stayed out the most. I used to play that at night a lot. What do you remember how y'all came up with that song, the Good Night song?
Um, just needed something to close the show, and we wanted it to be consistent, and so I started working on it, and that's where it landed, and that's the song that most everybody, because we did it for every episode, that everybody it tells me they use with their own kids, that they would sing it before they went to sleep at night. So pretty fun. Thank you for showing me that.
No problem. Hey, that's a true song, and I loved how in each video when the characters would learn a lesson, and at the end, the song would circle around that character who was the center of that episode, and they would start that song off, and you would see the other four come about. And Danny, who was in it, he was one of my favorites. I love the I'm sorry, I forgot his name. The Moose.
Oh, Milty.
I liked him, but I also liked Danny as
Oh,
well.
Danny was a favorite. Yeah. Danny
Yeah,
was a favorite.
but so that was kind of my way of closing the show with you your famous line. You know, God loves you, and we do too. Did you come up with that line, or did somebody else on the show do it?
One of the other, uh, and I think it was Jim Black who played Danny. He kind of phrased that um, uh, together for us in a script writing session. But like I say, we all just kind of leaned up against each other and did what we could when we could and the best that we could. So
Yeah. Well, Rick, God bless you and everyone who had a hand in making Quickly come to life. I don't know if the producer Ed Carlson is still around, but
yep, he's in LA area and still doing stuff and working hard, and he's great, wonderful man, good friend, and appreciate his vision for pulling together a show like Quigley. That was he was a guiding light during that whole season. So.
right. Well, Rick, thank you for being part of my podcast today. And again, from a fan who grew up on the show, thank you for what you did for making a part of my childhood come true. And just thank you for that, man. Thank you for what you
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it, and for inviting me on your show. I'm honored and congratulate you and pray that you have lots of success with it. Lots of people have a chance to see you and get to know you.
Thank you very much. Would you be uh, would you be let down if I were to ask you to send us off in a prayer real quick?
I'd be honored. I'd be honored.
Okay.
Lord God, I thank you for my friend Matt. I thank you for everybody who's watching this broadcast. That you would be with us as we go through this pandemic. Help us in the things that we're afraid of and that we're stressed about, knowing that you are walking beside us. And I pray for this election that's coming up, that you would do good things in this country that can only come from you. Reveal yourself, and we know that it'll be by your hand that good things happen. So we pray your protection, for your help, and for the joy of life that you can give to us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rick, for what you've done today. Thanks for the prayer and the memories of Quickly and a part of my childhood again. And I'll be in touch with you.
Hey, blessings. Nice to see you, and we'll talk again soon. Send me your book, okay?
I will. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
All right. Let me see if I can.